Hi everybody, welcome to this video, and today we are going to be walking through British imperialism in India and specifically what life was like. So you are going to use this video to fill in the notes portion of the Pear Deck activity that is posted in Google Classroom. So that assignment looks like this. And we are looking at two main objectives as you work through these slides in the next couple of days. So, your learning objectives are to explain how imperialism led to the loss of traditional culture and the extension of Western cultural practices in India, and to also compare the perspectives of British colonizers and the colonized from India on imperialism. Now, you will notice that on this activity, the first three slides of work that you have to do are some notes. Now, on two of those, slide 4 and slide 5, you will notice that there is also a Pear Deck response. So I will let you know when you should be filling out those Pear Decks just as a reminder, but you will have those to complete along with filling in those blanks. So let's get started with some background information as we work through the notes here. India at this time is known as the jewel in the crown, right? Jewels are very expensive, they're worth a lot of money. So India was kind of the jewel, that thing that brought Britain riches during this time of imperialism. Now, some background information here. Before British rule, India is going to be ruled by the Mughal dynasty. So that's kind of like a monarchy, right? The leader, their family is the one that takes over. They're the ones in charge. And they're going to rule from about the 1500s to the 1900s. And under this system, they have about 140 million people living in India. So there's a lot of people. And it's broken into what's called a caste system. And this is a social hierarchy, a social class structure. And you can see what that looks like over here on the right. And it's determined by birth. You cannot move up, you cannot move down. Based on where you are born, that is where you stay. And really, when you break it down, people are divided by occupation or what job they have. So you have priests up at the very top, warriors, merchants, peasants, and then the untouchables, the outcasts. So as you move up this caste system, right, there are fewer and fewer people, and they make more and more money as you get to the top. So this should remind you of that estate system that we talked about in France during the French Revolution a little bit. Now, also, India is not industrialized, but they are relatively wealthy. They have cotton, they have a lot of spices, and those can be used for making cloth, textiles. Those spices can trade. So even though they are not industrialized, India has quite a bit of resources that other countries need to industrialize. And the Mughal dynasty is going to end or collapse in 1707. And that is when Great Britain is going to enter as a colonial power or an imperial power and take over the country of India. Now, on the activity in Google Classroom, okay, you should have gotten through this first slide here, slide 3. So now we're going to move on to slide 4 and looking at why would Britain want to be involved in India. So thinking about that, right, I've kind of touched on it a little bit, right? Why would this country want to be involved? So we've got Britain over here and India over here. And really, this is very strategic for trade because if you look at where India is located, it's easy to get to other areas in the Pacific. It's easier to get to areas in like the Middle East for trading as well as in Africa. So it was kind of a middle point for Britain to be able to trade its goods. Gold, we've talked about those causes of imperialism. Spices, land, right? India is very large. It had a lot of land and labor as well, right? Again, as we've seen many times before, India provided a population to get those spices, to work the land, to get those resources for the British. And of course, we've talked about glory. So this brought more power for England. There were lots of people in India to be able to control and also spread Western values. So go ahead and, if you're taking a look at slide 4 now, make sure that you answer this question in the Pear Deck text box. How does this relate to the scramble for Africa, right? Looking at trade, gold, glory, how does this relate to the scramble for Africa? So let's make that connection, pause the video, and then return to slide 5 when you're ready to move on. All right, so next we are going to take a look at how did Britain colonize or control India. And what they're going to do is establish the British East India Company. And this is a trading company. And they're going to have their headquarters in India. And they're going to use guns, which we've seen before. They wanted those raw materials that India offered. So you can kind of think about, right, a big company, a big trading company. So think like Walmart, for instance. And right, let's say Mexico has resources and labor that Walmart wants. That would be like if Walmart took over Mexico. And what the British East India Company is allowed to do, or what they end up doing, excuse me, is they're able to force the people in India to trade with Britain. So they're able to force them to trade with them and no one else, which is going to be an issue. And India also, when we're looking at how did Britain colonize, India has disadvantages in terms of their military. The Indian armies, the sepoys, they were very large, but they were not united, which is a common issue we saw in Africa as well. And they were also not well trained. So yes, there were many people, but they didn't have the skills to defeat the British. And those British armies were a lot smaller. However, they were better trained. They had better weapons. They had those, right? They're industrialized. They have these weapons that non-industrialized or unindustrialized nations did not have. The British are also going to buy off local rulers with bribes and give them money, which is going to allow them to take control. Steel is also going to play a role in India. They're going to build a lot of railroads. That makes it easier to transport goods and people. And just like we saw in Africa, they're going to require and force those native Indians to build those railroads. And then racism as well. Racism was kind of this driving force, right? This white man's burden, making Indian people feel inferior or lesser. And this idea that the British had to spread their Western values to civilize the non-white people. Now, when we take a look at slide 5, go ahead and pause this for me. Make sure that you have filled in all of these blanks. You are going to answer this question in the Pear Deck text box when you are done with filling in these notes. So how does this, all of these reasons or ways that the British colonized India, how does this relate to how Europeans took over the countries of Africa? So what do you notice is the same, right? We've talked about Belgium and the Congo, and you can even talk about China if you wanted to. What are some similarities that we see in how, not why, how British colonized India? So make sure to answer that question in the Pear Deck text box and then move on to the rest of your slides. So let me know if you guys have any questions on those 3 note presentation slides, and I will talk to you soon.